Monday, July 8th. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Clerk.
Councilor Paul?
Present.
Councilor Edwards?
Present.
Councilor Janik? Present. Councilor Edwards?
Present.
Councilor deMedeiros?
Present.
Councilor Burk?
Present.
Councilor Milburn?
Present.
All present.
Consent agenda. Acknowledge receipts and minutes from boards, commissions, and committees. Board of Canvassers 2. Acknowledge receipts of correspondence. Letter from Aliquin Gas Transmission regarding maintenance of the pipeline activities. Letter from Nancy Cormier regarding Viti charging station. Letter from Ray and Jean Goulart regarding zoning change questions and remote attendance. Letter from David Cotton regarding support for the proposed ordinance amendments. Would anyone like to pull anything off the consent agenda?
Madam President,
Yes.
B1 and B2.
All right, B2, if you noticed, I put later on in the agenda.
Okay.
So,
B1.
okay. Yes, Mike?
B3.
Okay. Anyone else? I'd like to entertain a motion for the rest of the consent agenda, excluding B1 and 3.
So moved.
Second.
Motion been made in second. All those in favor?
Can I just correct, because you said B1 and 3, it's actually B2 and 3?
No, B1
No,
and 3.
it's B1 and 3.
I'm sorry.
General business.
You're right.
Thanks, Deb.
Apologize.
That's okay.
All good, it's too hot.
Too hot.
Did I do, no, I
Yes.
forgot if I did, okay.
I did the right one.
All right. B1.
So my only question here is, are we going to receive sufficient advance notice of any excavations, their duration, and exactly where they're going to be?
We should.
Okay.
The Algonquin guys has been very good about notifying us when and where they're gonna. And it's usually the area where you see along the road that has the yellow stakes in them. And along, it's usually where the electrician, where the gas lines go is where they'll actually be doing it. But they've always been very good about notifying us when they're doing work.
And I'll just do B3 and then do a motion for both. B3?
So simply, this is about the zoning changes that were made. These folks were out of town, and I know they could watch it, but if we can possibly, maybe if Chris can, have somebody respond to them and just give them an outline of some of the, respond to some of their questions, because they had some misunderstandings of some things, it appears.
Okay.
So I don't know if it's you or somebody else,
Us,
but
maybe the planning board?
Right.
And it did go to the land use, that's the office, right, the planning board
It would
office.
be the
Well,
planning.
yeah.
Yeah,
But I can probably have Todd take a look at it.
All right, thank you. I'd like to entertain a motion to accept B1 and B3.
So moved.
Second.
Motion been made in second. All those in favor? Public comments, do I have anything? I forgot to go over there. It's too hot. I do? Thank you. Diane Farnsworth, 7, Farnsworth. Farnworth. I'm already in trouble. 7I proposed charter change. Do you want to speak about it now,
Would you
or?
like me to speak about it now or when the topic is up?
That would be fine if that's okay with you. Okay. Thank you, Mrs. Farnworth. All right,
Madam Chair,
yes.
I don't know if it's acceptable, but can I actually make a public comment?
Yeah,
All right,
you're the public.
because it's not for, not,
You
well,
didn't sign up, though.
it's not an agenda item now. So my only comment was, I've received a number of calls, as I'm sure many of you have as well, about the project, Fish Road, Booger Marsh, and Brayton from the solar farm, and when the road paving is going to begin. So perhaps we could have something on the next agenda item just to give an update as to where that stands, because there's rumors flying around the company went out of business. So I think it'd be good for us to
The solar company, I think, right? Is
Yeah.
that what you're saying?
That's what I heard.
It's not, it's not,
Green development?
So, again,
How could green develop?
I don't believe green development have a business.
or the road contractor, somebody, whoever it was.
So I will tell you that Fish Road is being done by the state anyhow. Boogmarsh Road and Brighton Road are the two roads that are of dispute right now. And I know that Rick is working, trying to contact them to get a schedule as to when this is to be done because the year has elapsed. They were required to wait a year to let it settle.
Yep.
But the agreement was that they would be here paving it once it was, that year had come. So we're waiting to get a schedule from them. So I know that he's in communication with them. I don't believe that they're defunct at all.
Okay.
And it's really through, they were hired, the firm that was hired was required by the Public Utilities Commission to do the work, not by the solar farm.
Got it.
So I do think that, we would have some redress if in fact there was some delay in this. But I do know that Public Works Director has been on this and he's been trying to communicate with them. So
Okay.
we'll put it on the next agenda.
Thank you.
That was their request.
Rick's here for one.
Yes, I know what you're talking about.
We're gonna put on the next agenda, there's no reason to belabor the point.
All right, we'll put it on the next, John. Thanks. Appointments and resignations, acknowledgement of resignation from Bob Sodoma from the Recreation Commission, effective 6/22/24. Like to entertain a motion to accept Bob's resignation with regret and thank him for all his service.
Second.
Mike?
Just want to note that having been the liaison to that commission for my time on the council, Bob really does put in a lot of effort, a lot of extra effort, weekends, evenings. He clearly is to be commended for his dedication to that and to other committees and other parts of the town that he's involved with. So thank you, Bob. But I will say, no, I won't, never mind.
I agree. All right, so I have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Council President deMedeiros, discussion and possible vote on FY25 Unified Budget Ordinance. Any questions?
So I'm not clear why we have to do this tonight, because we already did it.
No,
No, we did not. We have to formally do it because the Department of Revenue,
Oh, okay.
You changed
After
the budget at the last
changed.
hearing,
Okay.
and we had to get approval from the Department of Revenue for the calculation of the tax rate as well as the budget numbers, so, not mostly the calculation of the assessment and the tax rate, so, because you made changes,
right.
we just had to get it through them.
This is the most recent changes, has been approved by them. Any questions?
And assuming that it passes, then this will start the time clock for any alternative
Yep.
budgets.
Okay, do I have a motion?
Motion to approve the FY25 Unified Budget Ordinance as presented?
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Madam Chair, just one thing for the public at home, because the numbers here are slightly different. So thankfully, we were throwing out numbers at the actual meeting when we made the changes. But the numbers are correct, but the tax rate is still that $11.10 per thousand as we calculated on the fly there.
If anyone watched that Saturday meeting, we were
Yeah.
throwing numbers like you wouldn't believe at them, so. Motion's been made in second. All those in favor? Thank you. Police Chief Jones, discussion and possible vote to approve the appointment of retired Lieutenant Daniel Raymond as a reserve police officer. It'll always be Danny to me, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So good evening. As you possibly know, Lieutenant Raymond, after 24 years on the police department, retired this past spring. He accepted a job and is currently working at the casino as a compliance officer, but we desperately need him to stay on the department as a reserve officer, with the understanding that obviously he can't work at the casino, but he can work any other details as required by the town. Lieutenant Raymond is here tonight, so I would request that you approve his appointment as a reserve police officer.
Any questions? I'm thrilled he's going to stay aboard.
I am thrilled also, and just in looking through the contract, this contract is one we have had in effect for
Yes,
other
ma'am.
offices.
Yeah, it's the standard one.
Standard, okay.
This thing, I'm on Merritt Avenue.
Well, he'll go by there for you, Jay.
I did tell the lieutenant that I plan on doing something. Unfortunately, what we wanted to present him based on his retirement isn't quite ready. So possibly, I'm going to invite him back at the next council meeting for a presentation, just as something to commemorate his retirement and thanks from the town. So when I know I have that, I already kind of let the lieutenant know that he
Yeah.
might be making a twofer appearance.
So just let me know. Or...
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
So the roast can start.
Yeah, could we roast him?
Good luck.
Anybody?
Good luck. Good
He
luck.
still carries a gun, so.
He's pretty fast on his feet, too, so.
All right, so do I have a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and second. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, this is you again. Oh, no, this isn't you
Yeah,
again.
cops grant. That's it.
Yeah, it is you again. Discussion possible vote to approve application for COPS grant for 2025.
So this request is merely to allow me to apply. This is not an acceptance of any grant or any responsibility, accountability, or commitment by the town. We did apply last year. You did give me permission last year to apply for an SRO grant or to add an SRO. Unfortunately, that grant was not approved. For this grant, I'm asking for 2 additional officers, and as you know, how it works is we get $125,000 for 3 years, or 75% of an officer's total salary to include benefits for 3 years. So my application would bring us into July. This wouldn't impact this budget. It would impact next July of 2025 and bring us in to basically the end of the decade, 25, 26, and 27.
Any questions? Deb?
Would this be for an SRO also?
If we can get the staffing up there, and that would be also having us, meaning myself and the council, having a conversation with the school committee, so we can kind of get that worked out as far as if we get the funding. I know there was a very soft conversation with the superintendent about possibly paying half of the half because we're going to get some funding. But I would definitely stand by the premise of what we did last year. I would like to add an additional SRO to the schools.
I'm confused.
But the key to that is you have to have an in-place MOU with school.
We don't have an MOU currently, sir, with the current SRO. I think it would be just more of an agreement, a formalized agreement about who's going to pay. And as we have it now, it's been kind of a practice for over 20 years that the school department pays the lion's share of the SRO salary, given the fact that the officer is assigned to the school for 10 months out of the year. And then when that officer comes back to the police department for June, July, and August, then the town takes up that responsibility. So what we would want to see, if any additional SROs, is having a conversation with the superintendent, myself, the administrator, the council, and the school committee about what an additional SRO and the compensation would look like. Because where the grant would last for 3 years, and we'd get that 75%, after the grant's gone, the town would absorb the costs.
So you don't have to have an MOU as part of the application?
No, no. They would like one, and I know many departments do that apply, but it's not a requirement of application.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I'll make a motion that we approve the chief's request to apply for the COPS grant for 2025.
Second.
Second.
Motion's been made and second. Any further discussion? Mike?
No.
Oh, all those in favor?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Council President deMedeiros, discussion and fact-finding regarding Viti's charging station zoning issues. As you all know, I'm sure you've been getting complaints like I have. The problem is where this charging station is, and it's open to the public. And when people pull up in the middle of the night, the lights are shining right into people's houses. Chris, would you like to give us an
So,
fact-finding?
so I did look into this. Actually, I've been working with John to try to resolve this matter with Viti. When John was out of office, when this was approved, Joe Kaufman, who was our zoning officer, took the application and he approved it. And I think he approved it on the perception that this was for Viti's customers, and it was not. This was a charging station that Viti had funded through a grant through Rhode Island Energy, and it's required to be open 24/7. And that was never presented to the zoning officer, from my understanding. So the issue what we're trying to resolve now is to, I don't have so much of an issue that there's a charging station there. It just needs to be screened so that the neighbors are not being impacted by it.
Could we
But
move it?
this is gonna be a discussion between John and Viti. That's, they were granted the approval for, because I don't think Joe Kaufman really looked at this to see what it was truly all about. Unfortunately, the approval went, and we're now living with it. But I think Viti will be amenable to some sort of redesign change. I just don't know where we are with that. I have had John try to reach out to them and set down a meeting so that we can get this resolved, because I do agree. I drove by it when they were building it. I thought for sure it was for them.
I went by there the other night, and I didn't, do it on purpose to look at it.
No, it's-
But there was somebody charging, and
Yeah.
I can see what the neighbors are complaining about.
But, somebody will come
Because
off
I
the
actually
highway.
went down Susan and looked, and I was,
No, and I agree with them, the neighbor, that, that somebody will come off the highway at 2:00 in the morning with their lights flashing, in their front window, and it needs to be screened. It should have never been, when I saw it, and I assumed that it was, and I never really looked into it, that it was permitted for Viti's business. I didn't realize it was for the public.
Well,
and-
in its present configuration, there is no way possible to screen it.
Yeah, I don't see that.
no.
What needs to be done is that thing rotated 180 degrees.
Well, we're gonna have to work with them to see if there's any possibility of having that done.
Well, that's why I
Actually,
said move it,
I don't know
because,
about 180, because it might just have, because if
The
I pull
opposite.
forward,
In other words,
they want to go
the
this way.
vehicle's
They wanna go this
entirely in the Viti parking lot. Then you could put screening in front of it.
way. Yeah,
I don't disagree, but we will try to work with them to see if there's something amenable that we can do. It was never, at least I never thought that was for the public, and it wasn't until we started to receive these complaints. And I have had John try to reach out to them, so we'll see where it goes, and I'll definitely report back to you what the status of that is. But it is a problem, and it needs to be rectified.
I mean, this picture of,
I don't get the picture, though.
well, the gentleman has a huge truck, he's,
he's
he has it
blocking,
hooked up, but he put all these cones out to
Right.
block off Sousa Road.
yeah, he's blocking the lane.
I've seen that, but not with the cones.
No, but this guy actually put
That's,
cones.
that's the truck, he's charging his truck.
So he's
That's-
charging his
that's
truck.
It's an F-150 Lightning.
He's blocking that whole
That's just wrong.
lane,
That should never
but he
happen.
actually
yeah, can
put
we-
up cones.
Can we at least approach Viti and say, hey, you need to put up some restrictions?
So this woman who sent us these photos, she's the wife of the man who
Who
has spoken about the
Yep.
lights. They're right across the street.
Yeah.
I know,
and I
I just
noticed
couldn't
it.
figure out what the picture was. It was.
Well, this picture, but you couldn't figure it out because you can't believe this is what this guy
Yeah, well,
actually
that's,
did.
I would have never thought that that's what that was.
Well,
Because
that's not
this
the
takes
first-
a lot of nerve.
It does.
But he actually blocked off the whole
No, I
road
can't-
with
can't
his
block the road. That
cones.
we would have called the police. And
So can I ask, how long does it take to charge a vehicle? Like, how long
I don't
does
know.
that-
Each vehicle's different. It's-
Could be a
So
couple
this is-
hours.
This is a truck.
Could be a couple
So-
hours.
I mean, that's the supercharge, isn't it, though?
So.
Depends on if the
it's
vehicle can
not-
accept it.
It's longer than filling your car with gas.
Oh,
Yes.
And he's
yeah.
blocking this road,
Yeah.
which is a problem.
Well, that's a whole different issue.
And it-
but if
Regardless of the
it's-
trailer,
But if it's
sad.
turned so that they have to go onto their property,
Yeah,
that would alleviate that. Do we know how long that grant is for, or was that just to install?
That was
it?
just to install it. That's-
So how long do they, yeah,
So once it's,
yeah, I get it.
It was a condition of the grant, that's my understanding.
They must have really blocked off Sousa Road when they did this.
He
yeah,
brought-
but
he
that,
brought
you know,
his own-
I would say that's an anomaly. It's just the
Right,
regular
right.
people charging that is still, obnoxious to the neighbors across the street. I mean, it doesn't matter, you get a trailer. I
Right.
mean, I get that's a problem, but the day-to-day issue is a real problem.
He brought his own cones.
Even if this particular truck had not had a trailer, the truck is longer than the available space between the road and those charging stations.
Yeah.
It'll take a
Obvious.
car, not a big one.
Like I said,
So all we can do is hope that Viti will see common sense.
Well, I hope that they will too, but, you know, we'll reach out to them and see where we can go with
I
it.
think we should send them this picture too.
I'll present it to
Maybe
them.
they weren't even aware that somebody just did this. Yes, John?
So I've met the owner of Viti a couple times. Seems like a reasonable individual.
Yeah, this-
So I would think that there's certainly an opportunity here, although my guess would be relocating those charging stations is probably not a small feat. So perhaps we're talking about screening in one neighbor, maybe there's a solution where, you know, they're screening the neighbor's house for them or something. Landscaping, something. Because I do feel for those neighbors, so.
I do as well, and we will, you know, work on this to try to come to some resolution with it.
Thank you.
At the end of the day, you know, if there's no resolution, then it's gonna come back, there may be a town issue that we have to resolve. So,
Anyone else? Thank you. Council President deMedeiros, discussion and possible vote on limited use of casino gaming capital. I know I said that we were gonna have a meeting in July, and I'm still planning on that. But there was two issues that were time sensitive, and I decided to put it on this agenda. One was the school department. We had several discussions with them, and we were happy that they moved some of their budget into their capital needs. And in order for them to reconcile their budget for this year and get everyone aboard, I felt it was important that we approve this. So if you go to the second to the last page, what we're approving is from operating budget to capital. The rest is for the casino meeting. Right, Diane? Okay. So it's $200,000 for technology hardware, and it's textbooks 85,861. And that's exactly the number that we had come out with, that they took out of their budget, and that we can use for capital now. So, any discussion on this? I think we all were pretty much on board with this.
Make a motion when you're ready.
Sure, go ahead.
I move that we approve a total of $285,861 from the casino revenue to the school department for the use of $200,000 for their technology hardware and $85,861 for their textbooks.
Second.
Motion's been made in second. On any further discussion? All those in favor? Okay, thank you. The next one is the police department. Chief Jones. Police Department capital needs for public safety vehicles. You're on.
Good evening.
Is this E2 and F at the same time?
This is E2.
Okay.
Well, aren't they the
Well,
same? They're the
yeah,
same,
why
aren't
did
they?
we put this?
Yeah.
Well, no, yeah, we have to do F and E together, but we still have to vote to, he'll tell you what we have to vote for.
Okay.
Go ahead. So do you see what I mean?
So
You're gonna give us a
I
request for
believe what the
money.
president's saying is you need to authorize the acceptance of the grant, of the congressional appropriation for $280,000. Then I'm going to ask you
Got it,
for
okay.
$75,000 to supplement the
Yes,
grant.
So, yes. So it's not the same thing, really. Go ahead, do it
So,
together.
we were fortunate enough to get a grant based on our congressional partners, Senator Reed's White House, Congressman Amo, and Magaziner supported the appropriation for $280,000 for us to purchase 6 public safety vehicles. So what I'm asking you, as part of that 6, is the grant will pay for 5. I'm asking for the town to support the purchase of 1 police car for this year, and the grant will take care of the purchase of the other 5.
So the 75 is for the one.
Correct.
Okay.
And the $280,000 are for the 5. And I know I spoke with Councilman Edwards about just the math, because that's what he does.
No kidding.
So a couple issues that were beneficial to us, we were able to, and I know this has always been an issue when it comes to the casino gaming, they only make so many police cars. And I know the first year I was chief, by the time that we were appropriating casino revenue, It's like a plate of chocolate chip cookies. You put it out and they disappear. So when we went to buy the cars, after it was authorized by the council, there were no more cars.
And
So
that's why we put it on
we
here
lost a
tonight.
year. So now what we do is we order the cars in the spring, and we kind of just give them a soft commitment. We're interested in the cars, but also we have a potential to get a grant. So that, fortunately for us, all came to fruition, all at the same time. So that's why I'm here today, so we can approve the grant and also purchase the cars. And the cars are on hold for us. So based on your vote tonight, we'll get the cars immediately.
And these cars are, that's fully loaded with
$75,000
everything?
is everything from the striping on the car. And like I was saying about Councilman Edwards, some of the cars that are being replaced are not police cruisers. Like there's one car that is used by the detective division that has 184,000 miles on it. So that car isn't as expensive as a police cruiser. So we had to replace that car. So that car also was a 2023. So what we were also able to do is save approximately $20,000 by buying leftovers. They're brand new, but they're leftovers.
But they have all the computers and everything in them?
They're like a
They're all
jet fighter.
So
They have,
the car itself for a police outfit for the patrol car is $67,000. To bring it up to speed with the computer, to paint it, you know, with the striping and the lights and all the rest of it, brings it up to 75.
correct.
They take the equipment from the vehicle that's coming out of service.
Not
No, we
necessarily.
don't.
Sometimes, no?
No, we don't. So they got
Okay.
smart with
They
that.
make sure you can't.
So, right, so now with these new cars with airbags and side airbags, we used to be able to do it, but now with all the protection devices, a 2022 Cage won't fit a 2023 car.
It's like Game Boy and Nintendo, right?
All right, so,
You got it. You're going to make it.
no.
No, I
just-
have a question.
Oh.
All right, go ahead, John, and then I'm going to do some housekeeping here, but go ahead.
Okay. So Chief, from way back on my first term of the council, your predecessor, actually, I think your predecessor's predecessor had us on this schedule of replacing 3 cars every single year.
That's correct.
So is this is us essentially playing catch-up with losing that year? So we're back on schedule. So now next year, we're going to replace 3 more cruisers?
With this purchase, I'll let you know.
Yeah.
So, because I think we've been very fortunate with not only these congressional grants, but the USDA grants. So, I mean, you have a very solid fleet, but I know at the request of the administrator, I did put together a list of all the mileage.
Yes.
Everything in red needs to be replaced, and that's 6 cars. Everything in yellow is at 95,000.
Yeah, I had asked for that just so we have some idea.
Yeah, the concern that I have is I would want to see us get out of sync, where now all of a sudden it's, you know, skip a year,
Right.
we don't buy 3 cruisers, now 3 years down the line, we got to buy 6.
So over the last 3 years, we have made a very concerted effort of using federal monies to bring this fleet up to where it needed to be.
Okay.
It was decimated.
You need to put cow catchers on the front of these things, right?
Right, and you know, and that also speaks to it, that is, knock on wood, you know, something doesn't happen.
Oh, no,
that-
is it 2 pages?
No, it's just one.
Okay.
We total a car.
That we total a car, something happens. And a lot of the cars that we're utilizing both on patrol and administratively, they're old, as you can see. The ones that are in red are well over 100,000 miles. The ones that are in yellow will probably be will be over 100,000 by the end of the summer.
But will we be, with the 6 we're going to get, are we replacing the ones in red right
Yes.
now?
Yep.
Okay,
Yes,
I
okay.
have one comment about that. That mileage you just mentioned
yes,
is road miles,
that is correct, sir.
not engine miles.
Add 3,
So
times
double
3,
it.
multiply it by
Not
3.
just for the public.
Yeah,
Right.
at least for the patrol cars.
Yeah, the
So-
patrol cars, all the idle time.
So all the red ones will now be replaced?
That's correct. And what I'm trying to do is work with the administrator about, of the ones that are like some of those red ones that are at 100, I believe the first one, the Crown
just gonna ask
Victoria,
that, yeah.
to see if we can give it to another town entity, the senior center, someone like
Okay.
that they're not responding to emergencies, but
Rick Rogers.
there's still some life left in the
Well,
car.
there's one with 105 too, so.
We gave Rick a truck 2 years ago.
I know.
And the chassis cracked in half. It's time to get a new one.
Yeah,
They'll probably get another 5, 6, 7 years out of them.
depending on how it's used, so,
Yeah.
yes.
Rick's going to retire that ambulance that they're using.
He's laughing. All right, so the first thing we need to do is F first, I believe.
Okay, Madam Chair?
Yes.
Make a motion that we accept the congressional grant and grant the chief the authority to purchase the 6 public safety vehicles with $75,000 in gaming revenue plus the $280,000.
Second.
He did both together. I know he's confusing me on purpose.
Not on purpose, I'm just trying to be expeditious.
That's why
Yeah.
they were in the same thing.
Yeah, I
Right,
second.
I'm only teasing. Do I have a second?
Second.
Dave seconded.
Motion been made in second. All those in favor?
Thank you.
Okay.
And thank our congressional delegation again.
Now I'd like to make a motion to move I.
So moved.
Second.
Motion been made in second. All those in favor? Aye. Councilor Edwards, discussion possible vote regarding draft charter amendment for quasi-governmental agencies in the school department related to reporting and council oversight. John?
Sure. So, obviously, we had quite the budget season. Part of what came out of that was 2 bills that were presented at the State House. One was to get an additional funding grant from the state for the school department. But the second one, which ended up not moving forward because it was essentially targeting Tiverton, was deemed to be unconstitutional and had to be done via charter.
But the Senate approved it.
The Senate approved it even, apparently the lawyers weren't paying attention, was to get fiscal reporting from the 2 water departments, the wastewater department, and the school committee on a regular ritualistic basis, so the council would be apprised of what was going on. In consultation with the solicitor, because of the way that the 2 water departments are structured and the wastewater department are structured as standalone corporations, we really have no standing to have them give us this information, but the school department is a much different entity. So a proposed amendment would ask the voters to approve the requirement that the school department transmit on a ritualistic basis the financial data to the council so that we aren't caught flat-footed like we were this past year with all of a sudden, the budget initial proposal being significantly higher than where we were at, which I think caused quite a bit of strife in town, and a lot of parents were worried. So I think it's a good idea for us to at least ask the voters to make this amendment to our charter so that we essentially know what's happening on that side of the fence.
Now the school committee chairman asked to speak. You can come out. Diane Farnsworth.
I'll wear a name tag from
You're gonna
now
have to.
on.
I've called you that for years. That's
Diane, if it makes you feel better, she's known my wife for 20-plus years. My wife's name is very easy.
Sina.
No, she never gets it right.
I try.
Is it Sheena?
Zena, all sorts.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for allowing me to speak this evening. I do stand before you to express my opposition to Councilor Edwards' proposal to change the town charter language to require that the Tiverton School Department submit financial reports to the town administrator and the town council on a monthly basis, as was laid out in the draft. My reasoning for this opposition is as follows. If adopted, this would have the potential to create an open-ended, additional, and unfunded financial reporting requirement on a department whose business functions are minimally staffed and overburdened as it is. It allows for the possibility of year-round and potentially politically motivated scrutiny of every dollar spent on education by a branch of town government that does not have the responsibility for care and control of our town's schools, as laid out under Rhode Island General Law, Chapter 16. And also, there is no requirement, and I think this is probably the most important. There is no requirement for someone to hold any elected position in our town to have a background in finance or budgeting. Enshrining something like this in our charter would give broad political and financial power to current and/or future office holders who may or may not have any kind of financial acumen or frankly care about the quality of education delivered to our town's children. I respectfully ask that the town council reject this proposal and, as an alternative, consider the following. Establish a joint finance committee that would be charged with meeting regularly to discuss the financial condition for the town, including the schools, as well as both short and long-term needs for all the stakeholders. This could be established by charter. This committee could be comprised of both the experts employed by our town, as well as elected officials, and perhaps even members of the public. This would include, at a minimum, the town administrator and school superintendent, the town treasurer and school finance director, 2 members each from the town council and the school committee, and perhaps 3 members of the budget committee and/or members of the public at large, however you'd want to put it together. This committee wouldn't carry any powers per se, but would be a working group that would discuss the issues at hand and could make recommendations to the town council and the school committee. It would be the responsibility of the elected officials participating on this committee to bring the minutes from this committee and any recommendations to their respective boards for discussion and consideration. In summary, I believe that we have a collective opportunity to show leadership and take a positive step towards professional collaboration and cooperation amongst town officials. In my view, this is what our constituents need their representatives to do for the betterment of our town, indeed our home. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Diane. I do have a question. Does the school committee get monthly reports, like revenue and, like we do? We get it,
We do,
okay.
and they're part of the public record as we get
Right,
them.
so simply, I think that's what we're looking for, is just for that to be submitted to us. I don't know if it would be any
I think the
extra
wording of this
work.
draft, however, really leaves a lot open to interpretation.
Because I think the problem.
And I don't think there's a problem with submitting it to you.
Yeah, I think what the problem was, we didn't have that, and then when we started asking for information, it was an abundance of information. So it took a long time. But if those.
Well, again, if we have a joint committee where we meet regularly, we discuss the school finances, the town finances, we get into the whole forecasting thing, discuss in a
Right.
non-political realm what the town's
It
true
would be an
needs are.
open meeting.
It would
so
be an
the
open
public
meeting,
could
of
come.
course. Well, I didn't mean it that way, but yes, of course, an open meeting.
Yeah.
And perhaps even moderated by an uninterested party.
There's a lot of people interested. I don't know if we'd find it uninteresting.
Or how about
I'm sorry.
a professional volunteer?
Right.
How's that?
Jay?
Okay, for me,
Diane,
this
stay
is,
up here, just in
this is all about transparency. Now, for as long as I've been on the town council, I have asked the former chairman of the school committee for monthly reports on finances. I was told I could get them, I never did. I tried with your former financial director, she never provided them. They just apparently weren't available. You just said they're already produced. You get them. So this is no more burden for your financial director than currently exists.
If all you're
All they gotta
asking for
do-
is what
let me
we already
finish.
get.
All they gotta do is push send on a computer, comes to this office, and it comes to this group.
I think Deb wants.
It's not political.
No, but it's part of the public record now. It's
Well,
available
it's damn hard to
now.
get.
Yeah, we haven't been able to get it monthly.
I refuse to do an official request. I'm not gonna do it. You people, I'm sorry, not you
Sorry,
people,
please.
the school committee and the financial department of school should be sending it over here monthly out of hand, just like we get. Everybody in this town, all they gotta do is go and look at our monthly financial report to find out what came in, what went out, what's left. We can't do that with the school department's budget. It's not available to us. We want it available.
Sorry you feel that way.
Well, there'll be a new director of financing.
We are looking for one, yes.
So, Deb?
No finger pointing. Seriously, I think that these reports are done. A push a send, that's great. But I think to take it a step further, I really like your ideas, Diane, because the public became very engaged during this budget season, particularly around the schools. And they're asking for that information, and they're asking us to work together, the council and the school committee. And
This is what I'm proposing.
They want to be involved, and I think that your idea has a lot of value. And I think that we should definitely explore doing that. And maybe it's monthly, maybe it's quarterly, but to at least look at the numbers so that as we come into budget season, we're prepped a little bit better. But I really like that idea a lot. I think it shows transparency, and it shows that each side is reaching out to work together. And that's what we're asked to do, and I think that's what we really need to do.
Mike?
Thank you, and thank you, Chairwoman. I, too, echo what Councilor Janik just said. I think we're better off, it's a better approach to take, to find a way to have that joint type of a committee conversation on an ongoing basis, because it's a collaborative process. And I appreciate Councilor Edwards' effort here. At the same time, it seems one-sided to me. I'm not sure that I need, honestly, the school committee's financial reports every month, because I know that that's a big part of their duty. I understand it was a rough budget season, but, and I think Mrs. Farnworth will be one of the first to say that we were provided information early on that was not vetted through the school committee and should not have gotten to us. And that really set the tone for the whole process this year. I have every faith in her as the chair, and I know she's up for reelection, and I, for one, hope she's reelected. But regardless, I have all the faith in her and her financial acumen, as well as Ms. Palish, who's also on the school committee. And I think that if we can work collaboratively together, and we can probably do it without a change in the charter, we can probably do it through resolution, joint resolution, some other mechanism to create such a committee. It doesn't have the standing, if you will, over the long haul, so some other committee, town council or and/or school committee can back out, but it's harder if you start it to back out of such a process. So I, respectfully am not going to vote to put this suggested charter amendment forward, because I'd rather have time to explore that option.
John, would you like?
Absolutely.
Yes.
So I appreciate the sentiment that this is in some way politically motivated. I assure you that it's not. From my time serving both on the council, the budget committee, what we heard during this process from the budget committee, it really concerned me that we lacked any sort of relevant information. The budget committee actually came in front of this council and proposed $1 more because they weren't able to get the information. I'm simply seeking to have us require something so that future town councils, future school committees are going to be involved in that collaborative process. And I agree. I think there should be a collaborative discussion. And that's absolutely something that should come out of this as well. But if there is no mechanism to force the transfer of information, then who's to say it's still going to happen 5, 6, 7, 8 years down the road? And so, for me, from my perspective, that's what I think we deserve. I think that's what the voters deserve in this town. And more to the point, it's my understanding that the superintendent met with, our town administrator, our solicitor, your solicitor, and they agreed to do just that. So if the intent is to share information, and the goal is to do this in a collaborative manner and to do it in an ongoing process, why not enshrine it in the Constitution? Why not Tiverton Constitution? Why not enshrine it in the charter?
He's running for president.
Yeah, apparently. Why not enshrine it in the charter so that future school committees and future councils are beholden to that idea of being collaborative as it comes to the budget, especially if you guys already get the information, so it's not that much harder to just send it over to the clerk. It goes in the packet, we accept it under the consent agenda, and then there's an opportunity for us to get another set of eyes on it. And more importantly, it prevents the surprise every budget season that we go through, this year especially, of, hey, we on the council side, we've sat here, we've allocated dollars, we've done the 4%, the 3%, whatever the case may be. I've been on budget committees where we've given more than the town council even wanted us to give to the school department. And, we all, I'm sure, thought coming into this cycle that, hey, schools are going to be okay. We can finally address what the council needs to address on our side. And it ended up not being that way. So I think having an earlier discussion as it relates to it and having all the information is better. Unless, of course, the goal is to fall back into what happened this past year, in which case then, transparency would be the antithesis of that.
Anyone else? Diane, the only thing I can say is I understand why John would want to do this because, quite frankly, it was pulling teeth to get anything for a long time. And eventually you and Deb got involved and we got it. But if you are already producing this every month, then if we got it, then we'd have a better understanding when we had to make decisions. And not say, well, what did you do with this money? Or what did you do with that? We had this in front of us, and we can figure it out. And it was difficult this year. And I'm not putting any blame on anyone, but we were not getting what we needed. And every time we asked...
Well, I think I'm here to talk about the future. I mean, we could go back and forth for
Yeah,
hours.
But
It's not the
that's
point.
why this has come up. That's why this has come up.
And I
because we
feel it's
want-
completely political, honestly.
No.
So I respectfully
Slightest.
disagree with Mr. Edwards. I respectfully disagreed with his father's bills. And I will, I do understand that Mr. Cotta and Dr. Sanquioni are meeting regularly to share information and have agreed to do so, and I think that should continue. But I also think it's time for the elected officials to talk together on a regular basis so that there is no quote-unquote misunderstanding as to where either side of town government stands.
I'm not saying that I don't think your committee is the right one. But I'm also saying that it would be so much helpful when we had to make decision at the end of the year to get these monthly reports, not to tell you what to do with it, just so that we had a better understanding of where the money was going. And quite frankly, it'll bring more trust into the
And
situation.
I don't think it belongs in the charter, though.
Okay. Mike?
Just to look ahead, if this amendment to the charter would go through, set aside everybody who's sitting here today, okay? 5, 6 years from now, we all decide that we want to do other things, we're not sitting here, new council. Nothing then prohibits a member or two of that council to take that item that's now on the consent agenda, the monthly report, and politicize it. But, that's not, and I hear what you're saying, John, and I respect that, but we have to look at what happens in the future, because there can and probably will be some who will politicize it, and then they'll use the council meeting as a bully pulpit throughout the year when the school committee may not be present, as opposed to, well, if we have some type of agreement outside of this, that we're going to have a committee or whatever, it could be discussed there, or I could take it to a school committee meeting and say, can you help me understand why you're doing X, Y, and Z?
Why would this be politicized? How could they politicize?
What I just explained.
I think any of us have been around long enough to have watched any number of town meetings, not only town council, but the budget committee. I mean, let's face it, we've heard so many yelling and screaming matches in that realm over the years. And many times it was targeted at the schools because we do represent a significant portion of the town's budget. So I think, putting this in a more professional format and allowing for the collaboration and continued communication, I think is a much better option.
Anyone else? Do you want to go
Does,
before Jay?
just a simple question. Do you have the charter in front of you? Does the charter address all of the other committees that provide records to us and budgets to us?
Well, they submit their budgets to us through the town administrator, so.
I don't even mean I mean what we get in the consent agenda every,
You get a report, a financial report from the treasurer every
Right.
month.
does
know,
the
that's-
charter address that?
I don't know if the charter, that's just a
I don't
matter of
think it
practice
does.
that she gives it to you.
I'm just wondering like why we would single out,
When I was on the school.
Well,
committee,
because-
we got a monthly
I'm sorry.
report.
It's because they work, those departments and they work for the town administrator and the council, so that's, you're operating under your budget. You need to
Yes.
determine whether or not your people are overspending or not. That's why they report, that's why we get that report, and I'm sure.
but it's not in the chart, it doesn't say that in the charter. So future town councils could say, I don't need to get,
Yeah, they could,
the
I mean,
budget
but, I mean, the
information.
town administrator would be a fool not that my friend Chris is a fool, but, sometimes he is. It would be a fool not to get a monthly report, I mean, you know,
Right.
I know that he looks at my bills every month, and, you know, so, that's just part of his job, or his or her job as a town administrator, to look at what the spending is. If we didn't do that when we were hit with the COVID stuff, I mean, if you remember, we had to cut $1.2 million out of the budget, and that was only because Chris was monitoring that we weren't getting the revenues that we needed, and we were gonna be in trouble. So that's why we made those cuts, not this council, but the previous council made the cuts to capital within 2 months, just to
Yeah.
get us, make sure we had a balanced budget. He can only do that because he had those numbers.
Yeah.
To Councilor Giannick's point, though, we do get that. Every month when we get that report from downstairs,
we
that
do get
literally
it.
covers
We
those
do
committees.
get
and
it, but I'm
commissions.
just saying, does the charter say we have to get that?
Well, no, but it's very helpful to get it.
I get
so-
that, but so if we're gonna do this in the charter, why don't we say then, if we're saying the school committee has to report,
Oh, just put that the treasurer has to give his monthly report.
like why don't we?
Would you add the library as well?
They all do their.
Do they give you the detailed budget to actual every month?
No,
Actually, I think she does.
Yes, she does,
I
you're
was
right,
gonna
she
say, we do get a
does, she
report from her.
absolutely does, yeah.
Does she?
Yes, she
Yeah,
does.
yeah, it's in the treasurer's.
so
So
it's in the treasury.
we do it as a matter of transparency. And it's not only just for the town bodies. By law, by state law, we have to report all of our expenditure-based expenditures through the state's transparency portal. So it gives validation to the State Department of Revenue, to the State Department of Administration, that we are actually complying, because they're gonna look at what we actually do report through the treasurer's office. And it would be kind of dumb for her not to report what we report to the state that we do by monthly. I think we do it twice a month here, once a month here. So it's consistent. We're trying to be open with what we do. I do know the schools have a reporting mechanism that
I was
goes to
just gonna say
RIDE.
that, right,
I
it
just
goes
think
to
it's a little
RIDE.
bit more difficult for people to find it. It's not as easy.
Well, no, what we did several years ago, because you're right, the data that goes to RIDE is somewhat delayed.
It is.
And for those who are not computer savvy, it's not very easy
Yeah, you're right.
to get at.
It's a little bit difficult to.
I've spent many hours pouring through
I'm sure you
RIDE
have.
financial data. So we instituted several years back a process whereby the finance director, and it is manual, understand, the accounting systems for this town are not the most high-tech out there. We don't have the millions to spend on fancy systems. But what the finance director would do is put together an Excel spreadsheet every month that gave you the total for the UCOA lines. It was current month, year-to-date, all of that. But it's put together manually, based upon information they pull out of their accounting system.
How long does that usually take?
It normally takes, we required that it come out the second meeting of our month for the previous month. Of course, in July, we have one meeting, and now we have no finance director, so I'm not terribly hopeful we're going to see one in July for June. But again, that also coincides with the fiscal year end. And we wouldn't be expecting it either, because the audit would be beginning soon.
Madam President? So this is just to inform the council, whether you do with this is so this is just a proposal. This is not the public hearing on this. If we go forward,
Right.
we would advertise and have a public hearing on this amendment. And then if that passes the council, then we would advertise, it would go to on the ballot. The process, there's nothing in the charter that requires us to advertise it, but I guess past practice is we've advertised it at least 14 days prior to the public hearing. I know, and there was a little discrepancy in the date, but I've been told that all local questions had to be at the Secretary of State's by August 5th. The clerk thinks it's August 7th, but I think it's August 5th. But in any event, that means it's got to be certified by the local board after a public hearing, if you go forward with it, by the Board of Canvassers, and then it gets to the Secretary of State. So you don't have much time, so you just need to decide whether, if you want to go forward with this.
We
and
have to
then
decide whether to make this a public hearing.
You have to decide whether.
And then after listening to the public, then we can make a decision.
Correct.
This is just to send it out for
This was
public
just the
hearing.
language that I wrote at the request of Councilman Edwards. And then, again, this was not the final decision tonight, and I think he understands that. This was just to see if we were going to go forward with it, so.
It-
I just want to let you know the timeframe, because we're in July, we don't have a lot of time.
Yeah, we're still in the Board of Canvassers.
And the Board of Canvassers would have to certify by August 5th. Or before August 5th, because they got to get it by the
And our
Secretary of State.
meeting is, yeah, we'll be all right, maybe.
Again, there's nothing in the charter that says we have to advertise it, but as past practice, we did, so,
Yeah.
So would you have it by July 22nd
Yes.
if we advertise it.
if we advertise it, Joe? Would July 22nd work from an advertising perspective?
Right now, I could only put it in the paper on the 15th for publication on the 18th, which is 2 days before the next council meeting.
And we're not required to do that, but
As practice, the last time we did the charter changes
Yeah.
in 2018, it was 14 days. And you held a special meeting at the
Well,
14th day.
that was when the charter,
That was the charter.
that was the charter review.
Yeah.
That wasn't a town
No, that
council.
was the budget, that we had,
Yeah.
the change of the
The
budget.
big change, where
Oh.
where the
Yeah, we
council.
changed that midstream.
I apologize.
So we could do it, but we'd have to have a special meeting for it?
Yeah, we'd have to have a special meeting. And we're going to have a casino meeting anyway, so we could put that aboard there.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion that we move this forward for public hearing.
Second.
All right, so I have a motion and a second. I'm just, yeah. Any further discussion?
I will just say that if we as a group decide that a charter amendment is not the way to go, then I think we need to memorialize another way to do it, because the budget's important, the school department's budget's important, the town's budget is open to everybody all the time. The school department's is hard to find, it's hard to wade your way through. Ms. Farnworth has said that they receive a monthly report. I see no real reason why this is a burdensome thing for the town to receive it. I just don't get it.
No.
But if we decide not to do a charter amendment, then we need to have a nailed down tight agreement that will give us that.
So this vote is just to go out to public hearing, and have the public come and give their opinion on this, which I don't think is, I'm not saying I would vote for it, but I think we need to hear from the public. And I think I need to
have.
make the decision. And I have heard from the public too.
Yeah, I was just
That's
saying that we have.
kind of the
Yeah.
genesis of why
But I would like to hear, pros and cons to this. And I'm sure we'll get pros and cons. All right, so I have a motion on the floor to go out for public hearing in a second. All those in favor?
I'm assuming you're going to instruct the clerk to figure the dates, right?
All right,
Yes.
so I'm
You
figuring,
need to take the no votes.
the no is, no, I'm sorry, no.
Here. All those opposed?
Who's opposed?
Right here, Mike.
Oh, not you, Deb, you voted for it?
No, I think that we need to go to
Okay.
public.
I'm sorry, I didn't
No,
see
no.
Deb's hand.
No, it was Mike's hand.
Okay. August 29th,
You mean
July.
July, oh, it's August. Oh, shoot me. July 20, I better not say that, someone might want to. July 29th would be would that work for you, Joan? If we had a special meeting on July 29th?
For 14 days, it being in the paper on July 18th, the 14th day would be August 1st.
First. These dates are not going to work.
Well,
again, 14 days or 13 days, it's not a big deal.
Right.
Because I'm not,
Yeah.
Right, because we're not really required to do
not
it.
required. I'm not concerned about it. A day short is not bad.
So we're just doing it as
The
a,
way word travels in this town, they're gonna know in 20 minutes anyway.
Okay, so we,
Correct, so that was
so Joan, give me the date again. We have to get it to you by August,
Lieutenant already knows.
Assume, good.
August 5th.
okay.
The Board of
BOC
Canvassers, I think, has to certify it
Yes.
at least by August 5th.
Okay,
So we should probably post a meeting for August.
so August 1st,
August 2nd's a Friday.
right, August 1st is a Thursday. Can everyone make that meeting?
I'll be in the UK, 1st to the 15th.
Oh my God.
Can we also request the school board to be there?
How about July
I can't
31st?
do August 5th.
Well, it's a public hearing, so they,
Well, it's August 1st, Jay, not 5th. How about July 31st? Then we're really pushing it, right? It's 2 days less. That's okay. Are you in the UK?
No, I leave August 1st.
Well, you're gonna spend your last night with us. July 31st, you can make, that's not, yeah.
Yeah,
Can you make it,
so
right?
that's a
We can
public
also
hearing.
put it in the journal, which would be a little more expensive, but it'll still be public. Sooner.
All right, so.
I mean, Ruth's gonna get it in tonight, right?
All right, so July 31st, and if
Public
it's
hearing,
okay with all of you, we'll make this the casino one too. The casino meeting too.
Love it. Swing 'em both.
Spend money and then go away.
Let's be optimized.
31st. You with me, Chris?
might be.
He's checking his vacation while
So
I'm
on the
No,
31st,
I'll be,
so on the 31st.
I'll be reminding him of it anyway.
The 31st, we'll have a public
Public
hearing for
and
a
we're-
written amendment.
Right, and we're also gonna talk about the casino money.
7 o'clock, correct?
Yes. Here, hopefully. If it's if we can't get here, we'll let you know.
So if it's a public hearing, do you want it here or at the high school?
Here, I think it'll be
It'll be
fine.
all right.
We should be here, okay.
Yeah, I don't think it'll be more than 100.
The AC's better here anyways.
Yeah, the high school, I almost died the other day.
Especially in end of July.
15 million
This is a smaller room, Diane.
We need to get a key for that big fan, though.
Yeah. All right,
Yes.
all right. Thank you, Diane. Mike, will you take the next one?
I
Thank you.
will. So, moving on to item 7G, Administrative Cotta, discussion and possible vote regarding animal shelter services.
So our contract with Potters is up. They are agreeing to, this is a very nominal increase, I believe. I think we're at 22 right now.
22,000.
So it's, this would keep us valid with them for the next 3 years.
So they're asking for the same amount of dollars?
Yes.
Yeah. Anybody have any questions?
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the contract as requested by the administrator.
Second?
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor? None opposed? Okay, move on to item 7H, discussion and possible vote regarding Article 4, Section 15I, open lot storage. We have a planning board recommendation on this as well. And would you,
So, yeah, I can give you a little bit of an update
Yep.
if you don't mind, Mike.
sure, and then we have the attorney.
George is here as well. So we did have the planning board meeting. They spent a lot of time with going over this. Their recommendations are put in their letter. They wanted to limit it, as you know, as proposed, it's in any residential, it's in any zone right now, including residential zones. They wanted to limit it to industrial zones only in the PDP, which basically would make it only available for the industrial park. I didn't realize this, but one of the concerns that the planning board made was they didn't want anyone to cut down any trees or anything like that, or they were concerned about the cutting of trees to make this possible. I talked to the town administrator, and correct me if I'm wrong, but if it were to be limited to the industrial park, we don't have any cleared lots there that,
We'd have to cut trees.
we'd have to cut trees. So,
Well, we'd have to cut trees in the industrial park to do anything.
I know, but I'm just saying, so that was one.
Okay.
So as opposed to one of the lots they have now. Now, as you know, the lot that was proposed, that generated this is not in a residential zone, it's actually zoned general commercial. And so it's, I just wanted to clarify that. They recommended that the time limit be limited to 18 months with an 18-month renewal by the town council. I learned something new from George, Mr. Watson, at the hearing, is that I originally said the building official could extend it for 18 months, and I did that because I wrote it that way because I thought that would be appealable to the zoning board, and there would be a record from that, and then they could appeal to the Superior Court. But George tells me that, Mr. Watson tells me that there's a provision in state law for appeal from a council when they're dealing with energy issues, so they can go to from the council decision to the Superior Court. Excuse me, the Energy Siting Facilities Board.
Keep going.
Oh, go ahead.
Public Utilities.
Public Utilities Commission, I'm sorry. Got that wrong. So that was a recommendation. And then they had other requirements that it not prohibited storage of hazardous materials, and, ensure protection related to noise and dust. And that the building official be provided with a list of materials, equipment to be stored at the site, and notification of abutters to the temporary use. So as written, as proposed now, it's in any zone. I guess I look forward to your recommendations or as to what you want to do with it, want to move forward with it or not. I think one of the proposals that came out through George was that, we could limit it, he was okay limiting it by acreage. In other words, if it's a general commercial zone of so many acres only, not residential zones or whatever. So, again, it's up to you. This is, again, trying to accommodate a public utility. This wouldn't be open to anybody. This would only be public utilities, which is really gas, electric, and telephone.
Water?
And water, and sewer, not cable. Again, it was brought before the planning board, this is a balance between upgrading our infrastructure versus, trying to balance the interests of the residents who certainly would have a concern about this kind of activity going on in their neighborhood. So, that's the recommendation.
Any questions? Jay? Oh, Mike.
So as many of you know, I probably know, I prodded the planning board with a few issues I had. I still think that a 360 or 36-month lease, if you will, is far too long. I think 18 months would do it, and the town council should be able to extend that for cause. If they come and say, well, we need a little more time, we could give it to them. I also think that they need to clear the site within 60 days after the project is done. And the town council could extend that one time for another 60 days if it was needed. We need to clearly define what kind of hazardous materials may not be stored on the site. The last thing we want to see is a 1,000-gallon oil tank sitting there to fuel vehicles. One issue I have is I don't want to point fingers, but a landowner could go into the business of leasing his land to a utility more than once. And if the utility were allowed to come in there and pretty much clear cut it and move dirt around to suit their needs, and then they leave, now we have a denuded lot that could be developed for things that maybe the planning board never intended. So.
I have a question about that, though.
I think cutting down of trees and moving of the landscape to suit a need, it could be a road, it could be leveling it, whatever, you know, some of that is probably gonna be necessary, but not until it has been approved to be done in the first place. So not in preparation, but after the approval.
I think the risk of a landlord or person being in the business of renting out the utilities would be pretty slim, because you have to have an approved project. I mean, I don't know how many approved projects they would have in a 5-year period, so.
Well, and then that brings up the thing I didn't mention. The storage within the town of Tiverton should only be allowed for a project within the town of
And I know,
Tiverton.
and I don't mean to be flippant, and I know that you brought that up at the planning board, and I was thinking about it later, and I remember, like, for utility, the electric lines don't stop at the border, right? They go through Massachusetts and whatnot. To suggest that you're only going to, benefit, again, this is a policy decision, but just let me give you to suggest that this can only be done if you're helping Tiverton. Well, the power lines that power Tiverton come from Massachusetts, they come from they cross town lines. So it would be very hard you basically would not allow it anywhere then, because that's not how power works. That's not how electric is generated in this country. You go through.
No gas.
Nor gas,
No water.
nor water. You don't stop at the town line. So, but I understand his request for that, but I think it's just unrealistic. Either it's going to be permitted or not permitted with some restrictions, but that's up to you.
Mike?
Thank you. Mr. Watson, is that you?
Yes,
Yeah,
George,
thank you.
sorry.
Do you want to introduce yourself? Can I have him
Of
introduce
course, I
himself?
didn't know you did it.
No worries. My name is George Watson. I'm attorney of Robinson and Cole, and we're outside siding counsel for the Narragansett Electric Company, DBA, Rhode Island Energy. So I've been at this for 13, 14 years now. So I understand the concerns that are being raised, and I'm happy to respond to comments and questions.
Thank you. And your parent company, PP&L, I grew up with, so they're a very good company. Question, so we've been talking about the professional development park, or the business park. Are you familiar with where that is in town at all?
Somewhat. Is that?
Off Fish Road.
Off Fish Road, but is
Back
it?
at the police station.
So it has a connection to 24 right there.
Is it north of the current substation property? Is that where the,
South.
it's south of that? Okay,
Okay.
On the other side of the highway.
gotcha.
Yeah.
So one of the concerns I have is the location of where this is being considered. Because I do think, although it is commercial, it's in a very sensitive area for many reasons. And I wonder how much of a hardship it is for your company to have something in that industrial park as opposed to someplace closer to, well, this other area.
So it's a very good question. So one of the challenges of these projects is, you're bringing in lots of equipment, your drillers, concrete, new structures, new wires. The other challenge is that the right-of-way is often put in places that was once, farmland or barren land, but has been developed around it. So while there's concern about the laydown area where the equipment's going to get stored, originally delivered and then transported to the right-of-way, keep in mind that the right-of-way is in a residential neighborhood. And so that equipment's going to get transported into a more residential neighborhood. This project itself is in 2 phases. So the first phase is actually, it's basically rural, or it's commercial with the highway. So you have the tap line that comes down 24.
Yep.
And so that parallels 24. There's, I think the only residential butters are across the border on the Massachusetts side, over by McMahon Street.
Yep.
And then, so it comes down to the substation, that's where it stops. The second phase, though, goes from, and this is where I'm going to show my Massachusetts roots. Is it Canonicus?
Yep. Canonicus.
The Vaughan Miller.
Yeah.
Right.
I can say Billerica, but I can spell it too. So it starts at that substation and then heads south, and that one goes through,
Sure.
I think, nonstop.
Yeah,
All residents.
Yep.
all neighborhoods.
Right, until you cross the Secundus River, then it gets a little bit more, well, it's a golf course, so, and then it kind of winds its way to the Dexter substation, which is over by the nursery
Yep.
in Portsmouth. So, getting back to it, so yes, I mean, is there an impact on the neighborhood? Absolutely. You're having trucks come in, and then typically smaller trucks move into the right-of-way. But that right-of-way is in a more dense neighborhood, so we're gonna have an impact whether or not we're coming from.
In those existing rights of way.
Right.
Right, which we don't have any control over. So you know, regardless of whether we agreed to cite you where you want to be cited or have you move to the industrial park, you're still going to impact those areas because of the rights of way.
True.
Yeah.
Yeah, true. And probably down the same road that the current lot that we were looking at is
I was
located.
just gonna ask that.
Because that's,
You would still go down that road.
Only for part of it.
for parts of it,
Part
yes.
of it. But the ongoing truck traffic, I mean, I imagine you're going to have truck traffic throughout the day.
Yes, they typically, but it's during work hours.
Right.
We don't have trucks coming in late at night, but they would, I would assume they would come up Fish Road and then down Sousa, turn in, and then go back out Sousa to Fish, and then away they go.
Right, but
As
if you're
far as
going-
deliveries.
Right, but if you're going up to Canonicus, you're just going to go up Fish Road
Down
and
Fish, yeah.
go down, I forget which one, Hooper or something like that.
Right.
So you're going to bypass that area where there's can be a lot of congestion in that area where you're thinking of citing.
Right, and I would expect for the first phase, being the portion that's along Route 24, we would actually we would just be going, we would go between that parcel and Fish Road. And then it's only once we get the approval to proceed with the second phase, which is the main line down to Portsmouth, then that's when the direction of traffic will change, for at least a portion of it. Oh, also, with respect to the oil tank, we don't store tankers on the property. Even within the right-of-way, when a vehicle or a piece of equipment requires fuel, the truck is brought to that equipment. Sometimes the equipment's brought to the truck, depending on its whereabouts. It's fueled, and then they go their separate ways. We don't store the fuel overnight.
Well, the other reason I mention that is, this isn't an ordinance for you. This is an ordinance for the future and any other utility company. So
Oh, yeah,
you may be great, but that doesn't mean the followers will be.
right. No, and
We're not-
I think I am great, but no,
We're
I-
not determining the lot.
Yeah, we're not pushing back on that, by the way.
You see what I'm saying? We're not determining the lot. We're just approving an ordinance.
Right.
Right.
But the lot being,
But where
that
the
was,
The lot would meet all these if they meet this requirements, but there is a pushback. I was under the mistaken that this was, one of the concerns of the planning board was that this is gonna be allowed in any residential zone, because I thought this under lot was residential, but it's not. So this is not a resident, the proposed lot is not residential, it's
Where is
JC. It's a lot behind the Sousa.
So where the oil tanks used to be on the
On the
east
hill.
side of Main Road, up on top of the hill, it's that lot.
It's like
Okay.
behind
So,
season.
so the planning board had a legitimate concern that we were gonna, and I think even Councilor Edwards had a legitimate concern that, we're gonna open it up to residential. You can limit this to, you could keep it industrial only, or you can limit it to industrial only and general commercial of lots of a certain size, and that would eliminate residential altogether. You would never have any residential. I want to add one thing that I failed to mention. The planning board indicated that we should allow this in industrial zones in addition to a permitted use that may be already on it in a lot. So if you have an industrial zone right now and you've got a company there, we should allow it there. Our zoning code does not allow that. It's one use. It's more than one structure in an industrial zone, but it's not more than one use. And this would be a different use.
Right.
So it's
Well,
not.
they're not residential either.
So again, and they're not residential, so.
I'll go down, Deb.
What was the size lot? Because it was quite big, as I
Right.
remember when you spoke at the planning board.
So at the planning board, they mentioned it was 9 acres. I went back and took a look. The actual lot's 8 acres, because there is a subdivision that's just north of what the proposed Seasons lot is, and so it's an 8-acre lot. So the suggestion was, if you said general commercial lots that are 7 or more acres, that would exclude, I think, just about every other general commercial lot in there. The other lot that's under consideration is the one that's owned by the company off with the substation. That's 25 acres. I don't know the zoning for that, but that, if we were to use that lot, we're gonna have to clear to use it.
Is
because
that the
it's-
one that's behind the park and ride?
Exactly, right across from the Mercedes Volvo dealership.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so this project would be ongoing, you're estimating like up to 3 years?
No, so
Or-
the project, in the siding report, which I hope everyone got a copy of it.
We did.
I'm sorry, but it's, the siding report, we note that it's about a 6-month project for that piece. For the first piece, I think the second wave, when you go through the residential neighborhood, will be a little bit longer. It's gonna be longer too, because of the difficulties of crossing the Cotta River, and it's longer. That project goes, I forgot the mileage on it. It might be 7 or so, but that, it's going from Conicus.
Canonicus.
We'll get you to say it.
It's going for that substation up north.
Bill Ricker.
So that would all be, so this, whatever we're going to say, 36 months or 18 months or whatever that period is, that would encompass all of that time for both phases of that project?
That's what we envision. They do move pretty quickly, and they do it in waves too. So you'll see them come through, then are gone for a while, then they come through again. But we're okay with the 18 months and then having to come back. We have no pushback on that whatsoever. Always happy to have the conversation with the town about what, where we're at with the project and what we envision as, when we'll be done.
And then when that's completed, does it get revised at some point in, say, 5 years or 10 years, or is there?
The transmission lines?
Yes.
They're, now you're gonna put me on the spot. Because right now.
They're not new.
No, those lines have been there since the 50s, I
Yeah.
think, if not longer, so.
Lasts a long time.
Yeah, so they've been there for a while. Now, as an example, if new demand were to hop on, like, or say there's new generation that hopped on in Portsmouth or Middletown or Newport.
Or new building in Tiverton?
Excuse me?
Or new building in Tiverton?
Yeah, and in Tiverton too, because the Tiverton substation's right there, and you also have the Tiverton plant. So if you have new demand that would result in those lines being overloaded, if they ran in certain outage conditions, then they would have to go back and take a look, and they may have to rebuild them. Typically, it doesn't happen that quickly. It typically takes a while to reach that level. And in this particular case, the lines are not being rebuilt because they've reached that level. The lines are being rebuilt just because they're old. You have, those are old wood poles. They're going to get replaced with metal poles. The wood poles are showing rot. The birds and insects have gotten to them. And the wires are also old too. And then there's been some outages on the Portsmouth side with trees falling on the line. So they're trying to revamp that for reliability, because when those two lines go out, they take out all of Quinnick Island and Jamestown. It's
Half the state.
John?
So, I'm just gonna say, I'm looking at the original language here. I'm okay with the way it's written, the 36 months and all that. I don't want us to miss the forest through the trees here, that this is limited to oversight from our building official, and it's just strictly public utilities. And obviously, PP&L, Narragansett Electric, does not want to drag this thing out longer than they have to, because there's, I'm assuming, a significant cost to do these upgrades. And it's probably faster for them to get it, or it's probably cheaper for them to get it done faster than it would be to drag this period out. So, in my opinion, I don't see this as an issue. I mean, maybe if we wanted to limit it to, everything minus residential, that would be fine with me as well. But ultimately, like, if a pole goes down, like, we need Narragansett, PP&L to send the trucks out to fix the lines. I mean, we just witnessed on East Road, they did a major infrastructure update there. This Asplund company was there for weeks on end, and they just went right down the line, bing, 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 and added all new transmission wires up there. So hopefully parts of the south end of town will have more reliability. I think it's the right thing for us to just make this amendment, knowing full well that the ones who are going to be the biggest potential demand users are right in front of us, And it's highly unlikely that, you know, in our lifetimes, we'll see another major construction, given how old the transmission wires are, so, you know.
$8 million, just over 8, according to their plan here.
Triple it.
Oh,
At
triple
least,
that?
At least.
Oh.
Yeah, so that $8 million is just for the phase one. So,
Oh, okay.
So the other side is
Okay.
longer
It would
and,
be a bargain.
yeah, and taller.
No,
yes.
I saw that. Yeah.
And by the way, I mean, the one question I do have for the solicitor on this, as we're talking about drop zones on East Road, when they were dropping the big poles in and everything to upgrade the infrastructure, were they technically in violation of, like, our lack of an ordinance? Or if they're doing residential, like, upgrades in a residential area?
Did you have open lot storage somewhere in town?
I drove by, they had a guy sitting there with, like, here's the drop zone, and the trucks would come in
Oh,
and
they
drop
did have
the
a
poles
couple.
and stuff, yeah.
Be honest.
And again, if that's the, listen, if that's the case,
You talking
then
about
I,
East Road?
yeah, if that's the case, that
There was a drop zone there.
yeah, that not having this apply to all areas, I mean, I think we would want to have it apply to all areas, because what happens if you have 8 poles go down in succession? They got to come out and replace them. They need an area, like, even if it's on the side of the road, to drop the poles before they put them up.
Yeah, I don't think that would be just a repair, that wouldn't require.
No, but on E,
So that wouldn't require approval by the Energy Siting Facilities Board, that's just a
No,
repair.
that's all distribution
Yeah,
work too,
that's
so
just
it's outside their
And most of those
jurisdiction.
drops were done on private property.
Right, but Asplund, it's my understanding they do have a laydown area somewhere in town that they've had for a long time. I can't speak to the
I
permitting
have
of
no
that.
idea where it is.
I have no idea where it is. Oh, maybe,
I need a couple of poles, so.
maybe I do.
There's one over on the field in Marsh parking lot. It's been sitting there for 5 years. Just sitting there.
All right.
So I'm just looking for a little bit of guidance, if you want to go forward, do you want to incorporate these recommendations of the planning board, limit it to industrial only, or, I do think the 18 months is a more fair way of doing it, and making the council do it, because it's more transparent that way, instead of the building official, and then whether you limit it to just GC and industrial zones, or residential zones, that's up to you, I just need to get some guidance. And then I think we'll draft it, and then we'll come back, and then we'll agree to, if you agree, we'll agree to advertise it, we'll have to have a hearing on it.
Yeah, we'd have to have it,
It's
yeah.
not a form, this is just a kind of a work session kind of thing.
Sure.
Coordinator Against Electric's like, we got to get the work started now.
Yeah, there is that pressure, but yes, but we recognize that there is a process that needs to be followed.
All right, so what is your pleasure?
And my preference is the industrial park itself. I don't have a problem with the 36, but if we want to do 18, that's fine. And I know we're going to have to cut trees, so.
Yeah, trees have to be cut,
Madam Chair,
yes.
do you want a formal motion?
Yes, please.
All right.
So I get some guidance.
So formal motion would be the 18 and 18 approval by the council, and everything but residential. And then keep the rest of the language the same.
Any acreage limits?
7 acres or more.
No.
You could probably, I mean, for your utility, you probably needed at least.
I mean, we have we have a minimum acreage we need to meet, or else it doesn't make any sense. And that's
What's their
about-
minimum acreage?
I think it's about 3 to 4.
All right, then whatever their minimum acreage is.
We're looking at the CES
Well,
parking
you
lot.
gotta worry, this is not just for them, it's for
It's for
everybody.
everybody.
Yeah, all right, so we'll use the big public utility as the standard then.
Big dog in the woods.
Yeah. Let's see, Cox Communications need that much space.
All right,
So just so I understand, so it's residential, excuse me, not everything but residential, GC and industrial only, right?
Well, wouldn't that include highway commercial? We've got,
I guess so, yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
so
Everything excluding residential?
Ex-residential.
And waterfront, I assume, we're gonna exclude waterfront,
yeah.
and village commercial.
well, there's a lot, yeah.
Yeah, so they're not going to the boat.
PDP?
PDP is only industrial anyway.
So PDP,
It's only
GC,
industrial.
and
I'm
then
sorry, not
HC.
PDP, Main Road, neighborhood,
Oh, PDP, yeah.
yeah, not PDP, neighborhood,
So,
pedestrian
Well,
friendly.
that would be residential, well.
Not all.
so let me amend my motion so that we're
Yeah,
clear. So just GC, HC, and industrial, which encompasses PDP.
GC, HC.
3 acres or more,
Yep,
3 acres or more.
18 and then 18.
and then no hazardous.
Yeah.
Do we need to specifically say the PDP because it is an overlay?
No, because it's only, it can be industrial anyway. And it can only be an industrial with 10 or more continuous acres, so it's only one place.
Well, I get that, but
It'd be subject to public hearing.
Yeah.
Yes.
Maybe
Do I have a
second?
second?
second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Against? You're against tonight. And I don't look to my left.
Yes, sir.
Your card.
Oh, absolutely.
I've got some questions to ask you, have nothing to do with this.
Wants to take you out to lunch tomorrow.
All right, Solicitor Marcello.
Yeah, we'll be at for the next meeting, hopefully we'll have a draft by then.
Okay. Solicitor Marcello, preserve Tiverton,
Excuse me, I'm sorry, I have to give them a draft of the changes now.
Okay, and what is the next meeting now, you said?
Next meeting, right?
July
22nd?
Yes.
See you in 2 weeks.
Yes.
He's all set, right?
Yes.
Make it from Bill Rick. Make it
Thank
from
you.
Bill Rick.
And I apologize for not giving you notice about tonight, he called me and said, do I have to come tonight? I'm like, oh yeah. Thank you.
Solicitor Marcello, preserve Tiverton, ETA,
So this is just
et
an,
al., Tiverton zoning board appeals. Go ahead.
so this is just an update on this litigation. This is regarding the Cotta gas station. As you remember, the planning board denied master plan approval and development plan approval of this project. Cotta appealed that decision to the zoning board, which reversed the decision of the planning board, indicating that master plan approval should have been granted because they met the standards. Once that was done, the abutters and Preserve Tiverton, and abutter and Preserve Tiverton filed an appeal to the Superior Court. That decision came down a week or two ago, which upheld the decision of the planning board, upheld the decision of the zoning board,
Zoning board.
reversing the planning board decision. So, that, they have a right to appeal that, the abutter, and they specifically said that Preserve Tiverton did not have legal standing to file the appeal, but one of the abutters was Ms. Haywood, she does have standing to, statutory standing to appeal. So, that's where we are. I don't know, we're waiting for the final order to be entered. We don't have a transcript from the hearing yet, because it was a lengthy decision, and the court reporter said it would be a month or two before we get it, but an order will be entering probably tomorrow, which will then start the appeal period for that if the abutter does want to appeal that decision and/or Preserve Tiverton on the standing issue. But that's where we are. It doesn't mean that they're going to get a gas station tomorrow at that location. The zoning board still has a hearing on the 17th for the special use permit for that station. So that's where we are. It's been almost a year now since that appeal was filed, so.
I have one question. Because this went in before we did the moratorium and took every special use permit and made it not applicable, that means they can still go through with that process?
That's right. They were
Okay.
vested before the change of the
Yeah.
ordinances, so they're going under the old ordinance, correct?
Thank you.
Okay. Councilor Burke, updating Seapowet legislation, H-7061, Sub A, Chapter 140, S 2415, Sub A, Chapter 141.
So this is really an opportunity to thank from us, and I know from the Harbor Commission and others, Representative Edwards for his strong leadership over the past couple of years with this issue and the passage of the protected area for Seapowet, which is Chapter 140 in the new public laws, as well as for Senator De Palma's assistance on the Senate side. And I know that he has taken some heat on that, but we appreciate his support as well, knowing that there will still be some legal machinations going on by those who still think they should have the opportunity to put in an oyster farm there. So, and I know others are addressing that. There is I don't know when it is, but the CRMC hearing officer will be hearing this relatively soon. At least it's to be scheduled anyway, so. Thank you to them.
All right, and we already did our,
7:31.
yep,
Say that again, 7:31?
7:31. At this time, I would like to entertain a motion to take the proposed executive session, town administrator discussion, possible vote on sale and disposition of publicly held properties in the Tiverton Industrial Park. There's also an update on the negotiations that are going on with the possible selling of that land, I'd like to put that in open session. My reason, go ahead. All right.
So there were two issues with this. That's why it says properties. One is the one you want to put in open.
Okay,
One.
well, we should have listed that then.
No, I said you put properties. They did have listed.
All right, so I would like to do the longplex.
So moved.
The reason.
Second.
Second.
Oh, you don't want to know my reason?
Well, you're voting to keep it open, so.
No,
that's-
okay. Motion's been made and second, all those in favor? Mike,
Mike, me?
Not me,
Mike, me?
not you.
not
Yeah.
me.
Well, and,
We're open now, right?
yes.
We're still in open.
Yeah, so Chris and I
Chris,
met with,
you're right. Why are you looking at me
no,
like
well,
that?
Mr. Riley, if you want to come up, I guess. Is it okay with Mr. Riley?
Yes.
Chris and I met with Attorney Riley, who represents Longplex, last week, I think, last Wednesday, in my office to go over some of the proposals. As you know, we had a proposal from them to purchase the property, the rest of the industrial park for a set sum of, I believe, was $2 million, which was not accepted by the council. And we were instructed to go back and meet with Mr. Riley and give our concerns about it and a counteroffer, at least. We did that. We didn't really give a counteroffer, but we said the town is still interested in their proposal, but we thought, one, the price was too low. Mr. Cotta indicated that he was going to seek approval by this council to get the land reappraised. Mr. Cotta also indicated that he didn't think the council was interested in selling the entire park to them, but just the parcels that Mr. Long was just not two parcels, but two areas that Mr. Long was interested in buying instead of buying the whole thing. We're in the process of doing that. We also had to express our concern that we were tying out the property for a whole year as proposed, and we weren't interested in that at all. So we're just here to clarify. So we're in the process of negotiation. I know there's been stuff on social media, which, again, I don't read social media, but I've been told that Mr. Long gave us a check and that we refused to take the check. That is untrue. We have no money. We have no signed agreement. No money was ever proposed to be given to us, and the council certainly didn't reject any type of check that was in hand. There was never an in-hand check. I will say, and to clarify what happened before Mr. Attorney Riley was involved, this goes back to August of 2021, when we did have a purchase and sale agreement with Mr. Long, which was never executed by him, which required him to give us $50,000 to buy one parcel or parcel for the construction of an ice rink. I have emails that go back to August 2021 where we agreed on the purchase and sale. We sent him the document. Again, Mr. Riley was not involved. There was another attorney, and we continuously asked him to please sign it. Where are we with it? Where are we with it? And he never responded, and we never had a purchase and sale. At some point, I was instructed by the town administrator to take the purchase and sale off the table, and we did. And so then a year later, then we came back with this. So we're kind of starting fresh, but to suggest that somehow the town is sitting on this and not working diligently to try to come to an agreement is simply not true. And we're here, I guess, to try to figure out how to go forward, and we're just looking for instructions from the council.
Well, I just think we should do this in the open because there's a lot of misconception out there. And I just thought it was important to explain what's going on and to say that we are working with Mr. Long.
So when the original concept was put before the town council, one of the issues that came to light was that there was somebody who would be financially backing the project that Mr. Long had proposed, at least one of the projects that he proposed.
The older project.
No, we're talking about this newest project. And we had made a request to meet with the financial backers so that we could ascertain whether or not it was truly a viable project. That never happened of the current request. Now, Mr. Riley's been very open with us when we had our conversation that they initially thought that what they put forth was an initial offering, thinking that a counter would come, that it would be the opening for the administrator, myself, to start negotiating with them. And told him, look, I wasn't even comfortable putting an offer on the table until we knew that it was a viable project to even start with. I think we've got some assurances from Attorney Riley that at least one of the projects is a very, very viable project. There are some significant financial backers behind it. We would explore that a little bit further. But we would also, and we did explain that the valuation that was presented to us with the caveats that the town would have to come up with some capital expenditures on its own to help offset some of this, that was somewhat taken off the table, that's really wasn't, I think initially was an offering thinking there would be more to a negotiation than it was to a true offer. So I think that we've kind of resolved that to a point where, A, we could go by the initial appraisal that we had done in 2021 of what the land values were, that's what we've used for every other acquirer or everybody, person of interest, and that we could delineate those specific lots that he'd be looking for, and then come up with a true offering of, and then come back to the council to see, would you be interested in that? And I think it would go a long way of the parties to describe the financial backing behind the project. And I think that there's not an issue with that. But I didn't think that the council would be at the stage where they wanted to offer the entire park unless there was some viability of what the park would be used for. So, in other words, you'd want to know what were the conceptual projects.
Oh, yeah.
But initially, if there are true projects that can be done and can be accomplished, and we can get to a negotiated point, we just never got there from the initial concept. And I think that we've set a dialogue that we can actually communicate and try to get through to at least come to some term of something we can agree to at least put before the council. And I thought that was.
I guess you approve of well, okay. All right, and,
Couldn't add to that.
Go ahead. if you
No,
want.
no, I just agree with everything the administrator said.
Council, anyone like to speak? Jay?
All right, so I've handed everybody a copy of what I did, spent Wednesday morning doing. So I went through the parcels that are part of this agreement, or this offer. There's, 55 of them? 55 of them comprising about
That would be the
127
entire park.
acres.
That would be the entire, okay.
And the offer for that is $2 million. As many may remember, in 2020, we had a company come in and give us a valuation on the industrial park, and at that time, the parcels that are being mentioned in this offer were valued at $4,722 and change.
$4 million.
That's a deal if it was less.
Roughly round numbers. The current appraisal, Northeast Evaluations on the town website for these parcels is $5,014,200. The offer is $2 million, so there's $3 million difference. Many will remember that in 2021, North Point Development came to town. They offered us $50,000 an acre for 49 parcels. They wanted 109 acres. That deal would have given us $6,631,000. The current offer is $2 million. The current offer, if you do the math, is about $15,721 per acre. Part of this offer also would require the town to repave Industrial Way and Progress Way. I had a talk with the DPW director about that. He thinks that would cost about $350,000. They also want streetlights. That'd be about $40,000. I had a talk with the town administrator this morning and got a shock, because apparently streetlights come with sidewalks.
Well, it would be, if they're requesting to be able to park on the road.
Well,
we would
okay.
want.
So if that were to come, that's about another $600,000 for sidewalks. So my question to us and the taxpayers is how big a bath do we want to take accepting this kind of offer? And we're talking about a lot of money. So if we use the North Point offer and compare it to the Jim Long offer, adding in the $400,000 for improvements, I didn't add sidewalks, we would lose about $4,361,000. If we use the current evaluation 2024, we're gonna lose what? I lost my train of thought.
Number 7.
Yeah, but yeah,
Well,
be over 7.
yeah, so I
Oh,
I just don't see it. And in addition to that, this offer requires that the 2 water stations that are currently in use to fill up trucks, to fill up pools, would have to go away. We'd also have to move the recycling center, again, the third time. And there was a map attached, and it seems to show a proposed location somewhere behind DPW, which 4.5 years ago was investigated and rejected because of access. And I really think if we move the recycling center yet again, we might as well just, we're gonna get drawn and quartered. It's not gonna be a good thing. So I just cannot see us even coming close to entertaining this.
Madam President, may I address? Thank you. So,
You want a copy of this?
no, I trust your numbers. First of all, the specific items you mentioned about the improvements to the park we're requesting, that, as we indicated to the administrator, is open to negotiation. That is not a must-have. There's significant infrastructure we would have to put into the park to develop anything north of where the self-storage is, including a sewer force main, which we would not be asking the town to contribute. We would have to be building that no matter what. We do not absolutely have to have the pavement top-coated, lights or sidewalks installed, or other infrastructure put in. Similarly, on the one-year term, on the option, we're open to that, depending on what the deal looks like. It does not have to be a year. This was proposed as an option agreement. It could be a purchase and sale agreement where we could close in 120 days. I would also note about the water tankers. We're open to, it's a town road either way. So we're open to a discussion about anything. The default is the tankers continue to use it. Our larger concern about that is the parking, which is currently prohibited to all along Progress Road, which we would like to see reversed separate and apart from this, at least on one side of the road. Right now, those trucks are parking illegally when they're filling up water. So the whole situation doesn't make any sense. But if they remain there, they remain there. That's not the end of the world. As far as the price, which quite frankly I think is what this is going to come down to, the North Point price and offer was very aggressive and a great one for the town. Didn't make any sense for a builder, and that's why, among other reasons, they didn't close. That land, as the town knows, because you own it, and B, you're trying to develop a recycling center there, is extremely expensive to touch. It is really bad land to develop. And it's very difficult to make your standard industrial project pencil out. Even outside of the rate environment and the cost of materials and supply chain issues, it is very difficult to make a project pencil out. North Point didn't do that deal at that price point. I would not submit to the town that is, if I were not representing a potential buyer, that is a legitimate price that you should use as your baseline. Because if it were so realistic, someone would come in and do it. If anything, just to bank the land for a future project, and no one is. You are seeing some interest on parcels here and there, and then they too also run into the cost of infrastructure development as an issue in making projects pencil out. So we're open to negotiation on the price, but I think the town has to understand where we are coming in as a developer, as a builder. where that price stands for us realistically, what a realistic price per acre is. When I spoke with the administrator last week about this, the takeaway was that he was going to go back with the council and seek a reappraisal of the land. We welcome that. We understand the appraisal that's there. We understand the Northeast reevaluation numbers that are there, and we know what North Point offered because it was public. We also know what it costs to develop it. It's not that we're seeking this tremendous gain on the town and trying to get the steal of the century. It's just what it costs to realistically build in the industrial park. That's the baseline for that, and that's what I fully anticipate to be negotiating with the town over if we can put together a deal.
Any questions? Mike?
Not a question, and thank you, Mr. Riley. I'll be very forthright. I was approached by Ruth beforehand because she had a conversation with you and Mr. Long, and I know there was and I'll paraphrase, expressed that you think that I have it out for you, and as does, not you, but Mr. Long. Sorry, I have respect.
Me too.
And I was very honest. From the times he's been before us, I have no trust in him. He has continuously come to us late in the game with his vendors and the like, when he knows what the process is. And because we felt bad for those vendors, have approved projects that otherwise we may not approve. And my concern is, I don't have faith in him moving forward with this in a productive manner. And B, I don't have faith that if we did follow through and he purchased it and, he had, this parcel had this use and this parcel had another use, that he wouldn't try to push the envelope on those like he has with his current complex. So that's where I personally, and I don't know what my colleagues will do, I don't think we get into this conversation at this point.
Which conversation? Just to do any deal with him?
Correct,
On any terms?
correct.
So, first off, Councilor Edwards, thank you for putting together all this information. It's very helpful. I have a couple thoughts to add as it relates to the industrial park. So, just out of curiosity, I pulled up the current assessment on the existing Longplex. It's $17.412 million. So, if we're able to, in my opinion, get rid of some of this land, get some of it on the tax rolls, we're looking at potential for, Mr. Long and his investors to not be assessed at 17.412, but probably I would assume somewhere closer to $50 million. And that's significant tax revenue. Just on this building alone, under our new budget, we're looking at almost $200,000 a year in taxes. And so, from my perspective, given that this council, prior councils, everybody's tried to get rid of this industrial park land and get it on the tax rolls. My perspective is that we should listen to any and all offer, negotiate. Obviously we'll have the final say as to whether or not we move forward with something, but if there's a viable project that's going to put a $20 million building on a piece of property where today the benefit to the taxpayers and the voters in this town is $0, and that's going to yield hundreds of thousands of dollars in tax revenue, that's just going to help us out. I mean, we went through this budget process. Schools always want more money. We need to spend more money on stuff. We have contracts we have to negotiate. The more revenue that we can get that's not on the backs of a residential taxpayer, the better. So me personally, I think we should continue this negotiation and see what the projects are, and we should probably do it in executive from now on. Just so we maintain our negotiating position on behalf of the voters.
Yes, but I knew that this was not a negotiation kind of thing.
So-
And that's why we're here. This isn't a new offer. There was no new offer, so I just wanted to talk about where we were.
That's fine.
At this moment.
And we can talk about all of the elements of the offer. We have no problem with the offer we put forward being
Right,
made public.
right.
I can't really get into a lot of detail about the
Of course
financial
not.
structure of the
Of
deal
course
and
not.
investment.
No, and that'll be an executive.
Sure.
There's just been a lot of questions on what's going on.
And misinformation.
And misinformation, totally misinformation in some points. And I'm not blaming anyone, it's just the way social media is, I guess.
It's the game of telephone.
Yes. So I just wanted to make it clear what was offered and that we were speaking with you, and there is no formal new offer, so that's what we're doing. We're on hold right now. All right, anyone else? Go ahead.
I feel that, do you have meetings scheduled to further discuss, like, financial backing and, like,
That's
because I think that we should go forward with that and gather more information and determine if it is a viable, something we should advance on. I don't want to shut it down now, but I don't want to say yes.
No,
until we
I
know.
think just move forward and come back. I do have some concerns with things that have gone on in the past, but hopefully we can get to some agreement where things are done more in the procedural way that they should be.
No disagreement here. So I did speak with the administrator and the solicitor about this. I think the nature of one of these projects in particular, the proposed Iceplex, is going to require a conversation about zoning. But we also have to clean up the zoning language anyways because of the impact of past litigation. So that's going to happen no matter what, should happen no matter what.
And what events will be allowed there, and when we need a special use permit, and when you wouldn't.
And correct, and the
Because we
event.
don't have an ice skating rink here in Tiverton, so we need
Correct,
special.
just like we didn't have an indoor recreation
Right.
facility, and that's caused all sorts of issues, right?
Right.
And I think the event ordinance in general doesn't apply very well to a facility like ours, and we have to discuss that and the best practices that are used in other communities that have these types of facilities. And it vindicated to the administrator and the solicitor that, you know, we very much want it. We want that certainty just as much as the town does.
Right, and once we set those limits and parameters, then they're followed in the way they should be.
Sure.
Can I ask a question? So I assume you've heard that we have water issues.
I have heard that in general,
Okay.
yes.
And the map that came from Mike Marcello, which it defines the properties for sale and what might be on them. So one is the ice house. Liable to use a lot of water. Another is a hotel, not permitted in the industrial park.
Not on the table right now with any formal
No,
development. It's
but
conceptual.
It's not permitted, but even if it were, it would be a huge water user. North Tiverton Water may not have water to give you.
You don't-
That's going to put a big nail in the coffin of that project.
One reason why we'd like to get this process underway as soon as possible. That's for sure. And I would also add, Councilor Edwards, that you'd mentioned about the specific parcels in the recycling center. Another element that we do want to discuss with the town is whatever land the town has for the recycling center, and we do disagree with its current location, but whatever land the town has for the recycling center would remain the town's land. We're not buying land from the town only to sell it back to the town, and it's always going to have a recycling center, and we envision it always to be somewhere in the industrial park. So we would not be buying that land. Technically, under the proposal we put forward, all of the parcels are included because, again, we would have to figure out where it would be sited in the park, which again, this is the map of your park. The park will not be looking like this, whether we own it and develop it or anyone else does. I mean, the idea that you would have 50 some odd parcels in there and be extending water and sewer to each of them, and you can't even cite anything remotely feasible on any of them, is just, and I understand this council didn't do it, but it makes no sense. The other thing we wouldn't be buying is any land that the town currently has under agreement or under option. We haven't gotten into detail, and we're not asking for any confidential information, but if there is something on the table, we're not looking to try to do a better deal than them or compete with them. So, yes, we have all of these particular parcels identified, but that does not mean that this would be the deal that we would be doing for those specific parcels. I just wanted to be clear
All
about
right,
that.
I was going to ask that question. All right, well, thank you. I think, is everyone all right?
our orders.
And we will look,
Administrator will set up another meeting, and we'll
Yep.
start negotiating, I guess.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Before we go, I want to make sure that this doesn't get in the way of our work with Rhode Island Ready.
It will not.
Okay.
Okay. That was one of my, I remember.
All right, now we're gonna go back to executive session.
Well, now I'm going to ask for votes to go into an executive session, Town Administrator, Rhode Island, General Law 42465A, and this is on the discussion of a possible vote and sale and disposition of a property. And then Town Administrator, Rhode Island, General Law 4246582, collective bargaining update, IBPO, 406 negotiations, Tiverton Fire.
So moved.
Second.
No, it's not IBPO.
It's not.
No, that's what it says there.
IAFF.
Yeah, but that's the.
Tiverton Fire is IAFF.
Does it say Tiverton Fire on it?
Yes.
Yes, but it says IB.
Tiverton Fire.
That's why I stopped and didn't ask for votes.
I think at one point it was both.
It was, but we
As long as it
can't.
says Tiverton Fire, we're okay.
All right.
You said all in favor, say aye, so yes.
Yes.
That's where we are.
Yes.
You have to say aye.
Well, I just want to make sure that's where we are.
Yes.
That's why we started talking again.
Yes.
All right, we're now in executive session.
Right.